Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year if you're watching this video when it first comes out. So today marks day 140 of a new habit that I started in 2023, and that habit is doing yoga every day. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how I started this new habit and what I think helped me stick to it along the way. So I first started doing yoga on August 19th, 2023. And as of today, January 5th, when I'm recording this video, I will have done yoga every day for 140 days straight. And for me personally, this is a pretty big accomplishment. I've always been someone who's sort of struggled with consistency and sticking to things and using willpower to kind of make things happen. So it's really interesting to reflect on the success of starting this new habit and the things that I think have helped me stick to it along the way. I first want to talk about why I started doing yoga in the first place. It had always been something that was always a nice to have in the back of my mind, I would love to get up every day and do yoga in the morning, but it was never something that I actually followed through on and implemented consistently in my life. And so what finally propelled me to get serious about implementing yoga and a stretching routine into my daily life is that I was just in a lot of pain. My lower back was hurting, my hips were always tight, I just generally felt stiff, and I got to the point where I guess I was just kind of fed up with being uncomfortable all the time, and I just had the idea, you know what, I'm doing yoga today. And I looked up a video on YouTube. I found a video by Yoga with Bird. I love her videos, and it was like a 10-minute yoga for hips, and I did it that day, and I was shocked by how stiff I was and how hard a lot of the poses felt. And they were poses that, back in my 20s when I was doing yoga a little bit more consistently, I had a lot of ease in those poses, and now they felt pretty stiff and I didn't have a lot of range of motion, and then most of the time I was uncomfortable doing this first class, but I knew that it was going to help me in the long run. And so one of the first lessons here when we're starting anything new or we're restarting something that we haven't done in a long time is you're going to be uncomfortable. It's always going to be uncomfortable being a beginner. If it's a body-based routine, maybe like me, you have lack of flexibility after time, or maybe you've lost some of your muscle mass and you can't lift as heavy as you used to. Or if it's a mental exercise, you're going to have that mental discomfort as well, being a beginner and kind of comparing yourself to people who are further along than you in their journey, and you may have all those gremlins come up and say like, oh, why do I bother? I suck at this, blah, blah, blah. I'm never going to be as good as them. There's always going to be some sort of discomfort when starting something new. And so just to wrap up my little story about getting back on the yoga mat. So after I was done that class, I felt so amazing. I felt so grounded in my body. I felt physical relief from my tight hips and my lower back pain. And I just felt so good after that class that it really motivated me to continue going. So other than feeling really good after my first class, I think there's a lot of other things that I did when I approached starting yoga that really helped me continue beyond that first day. So to kind of encompass what I believe are all of the things that I did that led to success, it really was keep it simple. And for me, that meant simply show up every day and do yoga. And I didn't have any parameters around how I showed up. I wasn't judging myself. I wasn't striving to continually build on my practice. It was super simple. It was just show up every day and make it a habit. So this looked like not having a time requirement. It didn't matter how short the class was or how long the class was. It really just depended on how I felt that day and what video I decided to follow along with. So there were times when, life gets in the way, or maybe it's the end of the day, you're getting into bed and you think, oh man, I forgot to do my daily habit. I haven't done yoga yet. Let me just squeeze it in right now. And because I didn't have any sort of requirements around how long I had to do yoga, I could just squeeze in literally a 1-minute session of stretching and doing a few poses. And that was it. That counted for the day and I moved on. I also had no requirements around the style of yoga that I did or any sort of mental judgments around what I was doing and if that was considered yoga or not or blah, blah, blah. What I like to do are the Yoga with Bird videos, and usually around her 10-minute videos, she has a lot of really gentle restorative classes, and that was fine. That's what I needed at that time, and that's what let me stick to showing up every day. And I wasn't going to judge myself by saying, oh, these poses are too easy, or I should be progressing, or it's not really yoga if I'm not doing, XYZ sort of thing. I didn't have any of those sorts of parameters around this habit. So following that, I didn't really have a goal to build on this practice. I just wanted to show up and do 10 minutes of yoga basically every day. And so I didn't have a goal of, progressing into different poses or progressing to power flow or different types of yoga that were more advanced. I didn't have any of that going on. And the last thing is I did give myself a lot of flexibility around the time of day that I practiced. I didn't really have I have to do it every day at 5 a.m. or anything like that. I do like to do my yoga first thing in the morning. I think it's a great grounding practice. It makes me start the day off feeling really good. It takes 10 minutes and then I move on with the day. But there have been times when I haven't done it in the morning and I've done it later in the day, and that's fine too, just as long as it gets done. So just keeping it simple and showing up every day. And having said that, I also want to quickly note that you don't have to do something every day. And for me, it was just something that I enjoyed. I enjoy showing up for it. I enjoy how I feel. And so I wasn't forcing myself to do it every day. It's just something that over time, I really wanted to do that every day. But of course, if you're doing something like running or something like that, that's a little bit more strenuous on the body, you always want to make sure you're incorporating those rest days. But if it's something that maybe it's like you want to start an art practice and you want to draw every day, so something like that is perfectly fine. Show up every day. But remember, just listen to your body and take care of yourself. So let's talk about the benefits that I experienced along the way as I got further and further into this new habit. And one of the first ones is I really started to build that trust in myself again, that I can, keep my word to myself and that I can show up for things that are important and things that benefit me in my own life. Like I said before, I've been someone who can be a little bit, who has shiny object syndrome and can kind of jump into things excitedly and then not really stick to them. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to stick to things. And over time, when you kind of bounce from thing to thing, you can start to feel a little bit bad about yourself because you wonder why can't I stick to these things, or why am I all over the place or so flaky? And so being able to set this up in a way that was easy for me to be consistent really helped build that trust that's in myself, that I can be someone who can be consistent and show up. And I really attribute that to how I set things up in the beginning. I really had no expectations other than show up in one form or another for 1 minute or more and do this new thing every day. And of course, one of the more obvious benefits is that over time I did find myself becoming more flexible and my body ached less, and now I don't have those pains that I did when I first started. I also think that this practice has been really calming for my nervous system. I think the style of yoga that I found on Yoga with Bird's channel is just so calming and restorative, and it just gets your body moving and you're not really stressing yourself out by doing this practice. And I also think that there is something around having habits that give your day structure that can also be really calming to your nervous system. And the final benefit that I've noticed is that once you start taking care of yourself and feeling good in one area of your life, you really find the motivation to start to stack other healthy habits or other healthy practices into your life, that then it kind of snowballs, where one healthy thing now has led to several or more healthy things down the road. And so once I had been doing yoga consistently, I started getting curious about somatics, and I had seen the Workout Witch on Instagram, and I was really curious about her programs. And so I ended up buying a bundle of her programs. And once I had already built the habit of yoga, it was really easy for me to then add on top a few more minutes of doing her program every day. And I also was doing non-body-based things, like I had started a morning gratitude practice. So after I would finish up with my yoga and my somatic hip course by the Workout Witch, then I would, start to look at my journal and plan out my day and do some morning gratitude. And so all of these things start to stack on top of each other. And because I was feeling so much better in my body, it got me thinking about other health benefits. And so by October, I had the idea to quit sugar. And so I came up with a way that worked for me to quit sugar. And I had been able to stay off sugar leading right up to the Christmas break. So that was another huge thing and another huge win that kind of came out of this snowball effect of these healthy changes that I was making slowly over time. And on that note, if you are interested in hearing more about how I structure my mornings and my morning routine and what that looks like, definitely let me know. And I think in a couple weeks, I'm going to have a video coming out where I talk more specifically about how I quit sugar. So if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you'll get the notification when that video comes out. And as this video is coming out shortly after the new year, a lot of you may have clicked on this because maybe you've set some New Year's intentions, or you have some more specific New Year's resolutions that you want to hit, and you're curious about how to start a new habit. And so how can this habit translate to other things that you might be interested in? Of course, if you have a fitness goal or something body-based like yoga, like I did, then maybe you want to consider how can you start out as easy and as simple as possible just to get the habit in place. So for you, maybe if you have a goal to, say, run a 5K in the spring or something like that, how can you simply start incorporating more activity and light running just to build that habit without putting the pressure on yourself to progress on some sort of running plan too quickly? And I say this just because if you start to progress too quickly and it starts to get really uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good, you start to create that resistance towards it. And then you're getting into a lot of willpower, and you need to use a lot of mindset and things like that to motivate yourself, because you're trying to go a little too quickly and it just gets hard. And so what I really liked about going slow and steady and having basically no goals or ambitions other than showing up is that I wasn't creating any resistance in my life to make this happen. And I didn't have to use any willpower to make this happen. And if you have a learning goal, it's similar. How can you show up every day? Maybe it's only 5 minutes. Maybe you read 5 minutes of a book every day. Or if you're, wanting to start an art practice, how can you just show up for 5 minutes a day until it becomes a habit in your life? And then if you want to progress and do more, you can, once it feels like you have a really solid foundation on this practice as a habit. All right, so let's summarize the key takeaways from 140 days of consistently showing up on the yoga mat. Number 1 is you need to have a meaningful why, a reason why you want to do this. As I said earlier, yoga had been something that I had been wanting to add to my morning routine for a really long time, but it was always just a nice to have idea that I didn't have a solid why behind. And so eventually I got to the point where my body hurt, I was uncomfortable, and that was a strong enough why to motivate me to start this practice. And of course, I wouldn't recommend waiting till you sort of hit, not rock bottom, but you hit a point of discomfort where you know something needs to change. It's always nice if we can make changes preemptively in life before we hit a place of extreme discomfort. But you know what? For me, that's what it was. And that was a pretty motivating why to start this out. The second takeaway is to make it as easy as possible to show up every day. I had no goals that I was reaching for other than show up. I had no time requirements. The shortest video that I did was a 1-minute yoga video, and that was okay for that day. There were no judgments around that. I still made it happen. And the next takeaway is totally my own opinion, and you don't need to follow this, but I really like getting my habit out of the way in the morning. I like starting my morning with yoga, and then I know that it's done for the day and I don't need to think about it. And it just makes it a lot easier if you can get it done during the day and not have to wait until you're crawling into bed. Maybe you forgot and then you're about to go to sleep and you remember and you're like, oh shoot, it's 11 p.m. I'm tired. I haven't done my thing yet today. And then you're going to have to try and really show up for yourself at 11 p.m. before bed and get it done. And, you know, there is that chance that you just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it today. And that can lead to feeling like a little guilty or like you've failed on your consistency. And it just is nice to not have to deal with those types of mindset hurdles that can come up. And the next takeaway is that once you have one healthy habit in place, you can start habit stacking if you desire. And so, like I said, once I had one healthy habit in place and I started feeling better in one way, it really got me thinking about, okay, what other positive changes do I want to make in my life? Because this one small action has made me feel so much better and I want to keep feeling better. So the power of one habit can lead to habit stacking that can improve multiple areas of your life. And so the last takeaway that I want to impart on you is not something that I've talked about before in the video, but it's that if you've given something a try and you just really aren't feeling it, or maybe you made this resolution kind of on a whim or because you were chasing something that didn't necessarily resonate with you, it's okay to stop something if it isn't having the benefit in your life that you thought it would. And I think it can be so hard for a lot of us to, you know, maybe you've told people that you're doing this thing and you gave it a go, but it's just like really not working. Then it's okay to step back and reassess, and maybe you need to tweak things and make it more simple like I've talked about in this video, or maybe you just need to realize like, I was chasing something that is meant for someone else. Like, this is not for me. And maybe you got that idea because you were, you know, influenced on social media, or you got too excited or whatever, you know, we all get these ideas in our heads from social media and stuff. And if you have that like heart to heart with yourself and realize that it just isn't for you and maybe you shouldn't have committed to this, then it's okay to let it go. But make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, not just because it got hard and now you're giving up. If it really isn't resonating with you, then maybe that's where you start to have a think around, maybe I change it or maybe I let it go and I start something new. All right, everyone, that's the video. If you're still watching, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I really hope that you're getting something out of this video. And if you did make it this far, I would love to hear what resonated with you. Leave a comment down below. I would also love to hear if there's anything else that you are interested in that you would love me to talk about. And if it's something that I feel I can speak to, then I would love to make a video on it. So make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I want to talk a lot more about just feeling better in life and the things that I'm doing to feel better in life. And I'm also going to be sharing the same types of content as last year with kind of my life lessons and reflections and things like that. So if that interests you, hit subscribe and leave the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And with that, I will see you next week.